Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Watson Michael from Ceylon Institute of English and Leadership. And once again, we're glad to have Dr. Gary DePaul back with us. So, for those who don't know, Gary is the Executive Leadership Development Consultant at Gary DePaul Leadership, Distinguished Principal Research Fellow at the Conference Board in USA, Adjunct Professor, Department of Educational Leadership at University of North Carolina at Charlotte. So, Gary, welcome back. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here and looking forward to this topic.
Absolutely. It's such an honor to have you back. And yeah, we're glad to see Michael also, right? Now he's gone back into.
Yes, Michael jumped in this call. So he's not
Yeah.
very he's not very happy about he's happy about being on my lap. That's about it.
Right. So we have Michael. For those who don't know, Michael is a cat, right? So there are two Michaels in this podcast. Okay, one is me, the other Michael is Gary's cat. Okay, right. So Gary, we have a lot of interesting things happening these days, especially with the global inflation. There are about 80,000 odd jobs which have been cut across the USA and which is still continuing to grow. And these are major corporations like Microsoft, Amazon, Zoom, and so many. What do you think is the reason behind this?
Yeah, you said the key word, inflation.
Mm,
There's so much going on right now, global disasters. You
yeah,
have a big war with Ukraine and Russia right now going on, which
yeah,
has affected oil in so many different ways.
yeah.
Um, but companies are really trying to figure out what they can do to adapt. And unfortunately, the largest asset that most company have
Yeah.
has is people. People make
Mm,
up most of the budget, and
true.
it's easy to just say, okay, we'll cut 3%, 5% of our workforce
Yeah.
and be done with it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it may not be the best choice
Yeah.
to do workforce reductions. There's other options, but uh, that's the reality, and the technology
Mm,
sector has been devastated
yeah.
uh, right now for the last, I don't know, 6 months or so. It's been pretty bad.
Wow, very true. Especially with what do you call it? Chat GPT coming.
Yeah.
So seems like a threat to Google, and Google is they said they're coming up with the other version. But I heard Chat GPT and Microsoft they have signed some agreement or something. So I'm just waiting to see. Not exactly sure about it, but they said they're going to work together.
Yeah,
So.
that's a space to watch.
Mm,
I think it's going to have, I don't, I'm not on top of it, but
yeah.
I have heard, I'm beginning to hear a lot more about that space and what's going on. It will be very interesting. I have some research articles that are sitting in my computer waiting for me to read up on that particular area. I think that's going to be the next big thing to study.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So it's disrupting everybody and
Yes.
organizations. So yeah. So how, like, what do you think? Because people have plenty of resources. They're complaining that they're being laid off, or they're saying they had to pay taxes. They don't have a proper income, but they can always learn a skill, right? You have edx.org, you have Udemy, you have LinkedIn Learning, where you can gain immense skills to enhance your knowledge, right? And most of it is free. Okay, so you can gain some knowledge. And but one thing I appreciate is Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's, or I would say who bought it from the McDonald brothers. The guy started at 52, and whereas most people think of retiring around 50, right? And if I'm not mistaken, he had diabetes also while he was about to start McDonald's, while he was still handling Prince Castle sales, milk. shake machines. That's what his company was selling. So, what do you think, Gary? I recently noticed PMI, the largest project management institute in the world, they're offering free courses on their website. That's kickoff, KICKOFF.PMI.org. Whereas you get two free certifications and you get the badges from Credly as well. Whereas you get a free certification in uh, project management in Agile and project management waterfalls. It's a fundamental certification, right? It's just free and you get internationally recognized certificates. So, what are your views on that?
Yeah, this is a big deal.
Mm,
If you're part of a workforce reduction, even if you're not part of one, you're going to have a lot of time. And if you can do things like take those types of courses, get certifications, get um some badges,
yeah.
and it makes a big difference, and it
Mm,
shows that you're a lifelong learner when you
yeah.
do that. And it gives you a competitive advantage over other people when you develop and continually develop your skills and capabilities.
Mm,
It's really important to do that. And right now is a great time because there's so much stuff out there.
yeah.
20 years ago, you couldn't get there's no chance you could get some of these courses and books and
Yeah.
webinars for free.
Correct.
I think, I don't know, maybe in a given week I'm invited to about 10 different webinars for free.
Wow.
Now you
Wow.
don't have to pay anything, you know? So if I wanted to learn about articulate storyline, which is a web-based learning authoring tool,
Yeah.
I could take some courses for free.
Mm,
Um, and it's a way of keeping yourself fresh and current by doing this. So that's,
yeah.
you could you can go into LinkedIn, you can find videos like this, like
True.
you're watching now, these podcasts, and it it could be a difference maker if you're in an interview for a job, and this could come up, that what how did you do your job search, what have you been doing to try to better yourself, and you can bring this and say, look, I've been taking these courses, I've been trying to expand my capabilities with management, with leadership, uh you know but it doesn't it right now is a incredible time for
Mm,
self-investment with very little expense other than time.
very true. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. So, you have authored a great book, the HRBP Report 2022, right? And the best part is you're giving this book free. There is a free
Free.
download on your website, even the color version, right? How can,
Yeah.
yeah, how can this book help individuals, let's say hiring managers and firing managers, to what can I say, to how will this book help them to do their job role
Yeah.
better?
The scope of the book was for people in HR,
Yeah.
particularly with that role, HR business partners. Um,
Mm,
but there's some really important things in there that could benefit anyone.
yeah.
There's 7 success factors. So what I did is I interviewed a bunch of people in HR, a
Mm-hmm.
handful of people,
Yeah.
and asked them, what do you do that makes you better than your colleagues? And they
Yeah.
say, you can be really good at HR, but if you do these certain things, you could
Mm,
be extraordinary.
yeah.
And I talk about what those are. But it could be, you don't have to be in HR to appreciate and to learn about how to position yourself in a company to where you can become more valued by just doing these simple things. And I described 7 success factors that that can make a difference.
Yes, exactly. So, which is very true. And another thing is, Gary, you have authored 4 books, okay, and 2 editions are coming this year, okay, and one is 9 practices how to be in the 21st century. All right. So yeah, that's something which is great. And also, I want to tell everyone who is watching this podcast, you can go on to Gary's website. That's www.garyadipal.com, where you can find plenty of free resources which will help you in your career. Either you're an entrepreneur, either you're in the corporate world, or either you're in the medical industry or any industry. You can find some valuable resources about leadership where Gary has articulated it very well. And there's an interesting book called "What the Heck is Leadership and Why Should I Care?" Right? So
Yeah.
you might find a lot of cats pictures. Now, don't judge a book by its cover, okay? So that's an interesting book where Gary expands and he gives a lot of information. I'm not going to spoil that here, but one thing I would tell you is he was hired to fire people also, right? In that book. So it's a very interesting book where you can gain immense knowledge. But Gary had turned around the situations, right? He had made it into better situations, which is quite unbelievable. You'll find that in the book. So Gary,
Yeah.
any
By the way, there's 50 stories about leadership in that one little book.
mm,
And that book takes 2 hours to read, but it's written for people to really understand how to practice leadership versus just saying here are the leadership values. It goes into it into the types of behaviors that illustrate what it means to be practicing leadership in the 21st century.
absolutely. So there you can gain immense knowledge. I'm always using that word immense knowledge because it's you just read it and see. You will feel the difference, right? So Gary, like any final message which you want to tell our audience, and when your books will be coming out, hopefully this year.
Yeah, I got it. Well, I got a probably this summer I'll have, well, maybe in the fall because I have to go through the editing reviews. I'll have another book out on partnering with the lines of business and a second edition of What the Heck is Leadership.
Hmm.
But here's the parting idea is if you are in a workforce reduction and you're looking for a job,
Yeah.
what I recommend doing is getting some help with your resume.
Hmm.
You update it as best you can, but send it to people, especially managers that you may know in different companies, and ask for feedback. What two things could happen? One, you'll learn about your strengths and you'll learn about ways you can improve your resume.
True.
But more importantly, that your resume may generate some ideas with those managers to connect you with other people that are looking for your skill set. It's kind of humbling to ask for feedback with your resume from people, but at the same time, it just makes you a better, more effective candidate when you do that.
100%, because once you send your resume, you will get feedback. Because sometimes when you do a resume, you don't know what are the key areas which you're putting. And there are some things like, because when you apply into an organization, they want to look at your strengths, weakness, especially your skills. That's the main thing which they like to see. So you need to articulate it very well. So that's a important key point which you mentioned, Gary.
Yeah, and when you do a resume, make it one column.
Mm,
The talent acquisition systems read those resumes in a particular way. If you have multiple columns, it doesn't translate as well when it tries to convert your resume. I've had to help people with their resumes, and they've had to learn the hard way that to one column, no pictures,
Mm,
keep it simple, like you've suggested before. We've talked about it. Keep your resume simple.
yeah. So keep your resume short as possible because if you're going to put too much stuff, no one is going to read it and they're not going to look at it. So keep it much brief as possible. Great. Also, I'll be putting I'll be putting Gary's website link below our video, so you could click onto that, and there are plenty of free resources which you could download, and it would benefit you a lot. So, yep. So that's about it. And Gary, thank you very much for taking time and doing this podcast with us.
You're welcome, and it's a privilege to be with you again.
Absolute honor.